Okay, back to part 2 for the week 4 Spicy Take Sports podcast for college football. Last episode, part 1, we kind of talked about a little bit of a wrap up from week 3 and the AP poll. Here in part 2, kind of going to look forward to what's coming up. And this week with matchups, there's some solid ones. There's not really the obvious, like Alabama, Florida game from last week, Penn State, Auburn from last week. There's still some really good football games next week. And we'll kind of get into talking about some of the best ones there. What is a game that y'all are most excited about?
Hold on.
I mean, I know for me, I'm kind of excited about Stanford UCLA.
Interesting choice.
I mean, it's weird. I know it's weird. I mean, they actually kick off at 6:00, and on the West Coast is a little bit weird that you're just going to watch a West Coast game before midnight.
That is weird.
But the reason I'm kind of interested in this, I mean, Stanford they've lost a game this year, but just one. But they did upset USC. They ended up costing Clay Helton his job. And going into this year, you had, two of the top guys on the hot seat were Clay Helton and Chip Kelly. And if Chip Kelly falls to Stanford, even though they did upset LSU, is it really an upset at this point? I wouldn't say so. And then Fresno already beat you. And if you get beat by Stanford and start out conference play rough, I could see that ended up being an issue for UCLA. I think UCLA does win it, but I think that's just a very intriguing game for what could come afterwards.
My actually most intriguing game is two teams that are not ranked, but it's Louisville at Florida State. Louisville's 2-1, Florida State's 0-3, and many people actually have FSU favored in this game. I've seen many.
Why?
I don't know. I've seen many takes on just other podcasts and on Twitter and stuff. People are like, "Oh, Florida State's definitely gonna win this game." I don't see it. Maybe they're seeing something that I don't. I'd pick Louisville to win this game. But who knows? They may be on something. Florida State may go in there and just whip up on Louisville. Who knows? But I think this is an intriguing matchup. Florida State's their backs up against the wall. They got a couple of recruits that are saying they're more, iffy right now for their commitment. And then there's a few. They have a 5-star corner right now that they, kind of asked in the public eye, is he still on board? And he said he's all in on Florida State, even that they're 0-3 and they just lost Jacksonville State. So, but we'll see. I don't know. Florida State's 45% projected for that game right now in terms of winning percentage. So,
obviously I'm biased. I just came off. UCF just got beat in one of the craziest games I've ever seen in college football, with a pick with 30 seconds left, put you in field goal range to win it, and you throw a pick six to lose it. Eventually, and also, now Gabriel's out for the season. Praise it for him with his collarbone. But either way, coming off of that game, I kind of went into that game honestly very cocky, as expecting UCF to kind of blow out Louisville after what they looked like against Ole Miss.
Yeah.
I come out of it. Obviously, they did beat UCF. I come out of it thinking, I don't know if UCF was just not very good, or if Louisville was better than we thought they were, and we just got a really bad look at them because they played one of the best teams in the country in Ole Miss in week 1. Is that quarterback is a stud?
He's basically their wide receiver, running back, and quarterback all at the same time. And
he's their whole offense.
Yeah, their whole offense. And Louisville's favored by 1 point. So that tells you how good of a game they're thinking it's going to be. It's supposed to be a good ball game. So we'll kind of get back on that next week, but kind of intrigued about that. It's just like a game that's not really high on the radar, but it could end up being a pretty decent football game. It's 3:30 on ESPN too. So, we'll see. What about you, Caleb? What's your most intriguing game?
Aside from the kind of obvious, I think Texas A&M and Arkansas, I think I've kind of been on the Michigan team's train lately. I'm interested to see Nebraska versus Michigan State. Nebraska, It's 2-2. You know, they've had high expectations there the entire time. You know, frankly, Martinez hasn't been playing that well at quarterback, though.
They did look good against Oklahoma last week, though. I don't know if that was them looking good or Oklahoma looking bad. I'm not sure.
A little bit of both, probably. But yeah, it was a hell of an interception by the Oklahoma defensive back.
Oh my gosh, I was watching that live. That was absolutely insane.
Did you hear that that Lincoln Riley almost challenged it for field position reasons?
That would have sucked.
Imagine being that DB and having your interception taken away because your coach challenged it.
That would have been.
I'm interested to see if Michigan State can put up another win. I mean, they're looking good, you know. I mean, obviously they haven't played anyone crazy yet, but just based on the fact that they're consistently putting up points, which is what Michigan State has failed to do for the last 6 years, you know. You know, and their schedule is not that tough either. I mean, they have some big games, but really their difficult games are going to be Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. And I think that Ohio State, I mean, depending on how Ohio State turns, either that they gel as a group and get better, or the wheels could completely fall off and they could be unranked by the time we get there. Michigan's dealing with a lot of injuries. You know, I think Michigan's kind of in the same spot as Michigan State. That October 30th game is one of the I'm most excited for that game, probably more than any other game this year, because my family's from Michigan originally. So I like the in-state rivalry game. That is going to be a huge game in 4 weeks. So yeah, I'm going to go with that. I'd like to see Michigan State get back to prominence, be good again, be challenging for Big Ten championships and stuff. But Nebraska is not a small time challenge.
No, I think Nebraska definitely has gotten better as the season progressed. I mean, compared to week 1, they played Ohio State. I mean, they played Oklahoma tough. I mean, it was a 1-score game. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens.
I mean, Nebraska is one of those teams. Again, I mean, I think Scott Frost is probably gone at the end of the year. I really think that's almost it. I think that's pretty much guaranteed at this point.
Yeah.
I still don't know what happened there. I don't know why it didn't work out. I don't know if the job was just too big for him or what it was. But I think that they definitely are one of those teams where, I mean, they've recruited not bad. They've not recruited bad. They just not come together. I mean, their recruiting is much better under Frost than it was before. So, I mean, they have the talent to go out upset guys. I mean, Martinez, I was high on the moment he got to Nebraska starting as a true freshman and just never shown it. He's just never shown what it like that he has it. But
I feel like he's been there forever too. I feel like he's one of those players like a Hunter Renfrow from Clemson, the wide receiver that you feel like he's been there for like 10 years. Like
I don't know how they end up like that. How they feel like they're there for so freaking long.
Like they lived there. Like that's just their school for 8 years or a decade or whatever. That's exactly what it feels like with Martinez.
I feel like Hunter Renfrow was at Clemson for 7 years. It just kept playing.
He's going off now. The Raiders.
Yeah, he's going to Vegas. Yeah.
I mean, we'll get to them in our NFL podcast tomorrow because they've been very good this year. But
they have been very good.
So a couple other games I think are kind of the main games. We're kind of trying to go a little bit off the radar a little bit with the games. Caleb kind of mentioned it. The game of the week is Arkansas and Texas A&M. Arkansas at home, obviously a very, very ruckus atmosphere. When Arkansas has a good football team, it's one of the best stadiums in the league, in the country, like bar none.
I think the game's in Arlington.
No, it's in Arkansas. Wait, is it?
It's usually a neutral site in Arlington, Texas.
Really? It says at Arkansas. It may be, but it may be in Arlington. I'm not sure, but
yeah, it says A&M versus 16th ranked Arkansas, AT&T Stadium.
it was an AT&T. Okay, well, either way, I mean, it's going to be a heck of a game. I mean, you've got Arkansas has probably been the surprise team of the year this year. I mean, I don't think anyone expected them to be this good. And they've looked very, very good. And like I think last week, a lot of people thought they could have been shocked a little bit and gotten trap gamed, and they didn't at all. So I mean, this is the first game in their gauntlet. They've got 4 big time games They got A&M, they got Georgia, they've got Ole Miss and Auburn. I mean, with those being 4 straight games, it's just rough. I really do believe if Arkansas comes out of this 2-2, then they're a top 10 team in the country. Because I think I think if you put Alabama, if you put Georgia, if you put A&M, if you put any of these top tier SEC teams through that gauntlet, every one of them take at least one loss. Because you play those 4 games in a row, you're going to lose one of those. I don't care how good of a football team you are. I mean, if you play all those games in a row, like if those are spread out amongst a few weeks, so be it. But when you have 4 straight weeks of those games, it's just tough.
Yeah, I mean, and especially when you have to go to Stanford Stadium, which is not an easy place to play, and you gotta go to Vaughn Hemingway in Oxford. I mean, it's be a little easier if 3 out of the 4 were at home, but 1 neutral site, 2 away, and then only 1 at home. They only play Auburn at home. So, and Auburn is the worst out of the 3 in my opinion as well. So it's gonna. I don't know. I think Arkansas can most definitely go 2-2, but will more than likely drop to Georgia, Ole Miss. No, I think they'll go 2-2. I think they'll beat Texas A&M.
Oh, that's spicy.
That's spicy. Are we gonna start getting into our upsets? Because I think I accidentally dropped one.
Well, you can get a little bit, but yeah, I think that's definitely possible this week. They do upset A&M. I mean, A&M still without Haynes King. I mean, I understand that he's not exactly Kellen Mond from last year, but still better than, I mean, if you lose your starting quarterback, no matter what, it's always going to be a big deal. So, I mean, without a starting quarterback in a neutral site against a team that's really probably feeling themselves right now in Arkansas, I could see them going in and beating. I could see them going into Arlington upsetting A&M. I don't think I'm going to pick that, but I think it could easily happen. What do you think of?
I mean, I take A&M, but I'm not as confident about it as I thought I'd be at the start of the season when I was looking at. I kind of thought Arkansas was all about wide receiving and not really very balanced, but their offense has been pretty dangerous this year. I don't know. I like A&M's coaching staff. I like A&M's track record of winning big games. So I'd take A&M, but I wouldn't at all be surprised if Arkansas pulls it off.
So what are y'all's predictions with Arkansas in this stretch?
I think they beat Texas A&M by 10.
Oh, wow.
So spicy. By 10 in Arlington. They lose to Georgia, lose to Ole Miss, and then beat Auburn. So I think they go 2-2.
I can't see them beating Georgia for sure.
Yeah, they won't beat Georgia.
I think they'll beat Auburn. Yikes.
Yeah, it's just that Ole Miss game's tough.
I lean towards 1-3, but I could also see them coming off 2 straight losses, angry, and then beating Ole Miss, and Ole Miss is kind of maybe comes into it a little bit soft.
I actually, if you line the weeks up, Arkansas will play A&M this week, play Georgia next week. They play Georgia the same week that Alabama plays Ole Miss. So
they'll both be coming off losses.
For me, I really do. No, for me, I think that they lose to A&M in a very, very close game, goes down to the wire. They lose to Georgia by 2 or 3 scores. I think they upset Ole Miss, and I said earlier, I think that Ole Miss upsets Alabama, but I said they'll lose a game they shouldn't lose. I think they lose to Arkansas at home, especially if they're coming off the high of beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Trap game, like we've seen this story time and time again in college football, where a team pulls off a big, big win, and then the next game they play a team that's not as good, but still dangerous, and they take them lightly and they get their butts kicked. And I could see Arkansas winning by 10 to 14 points against Ole Miss because they just Ole Miss comes out sloppy, makes a couple big mistakes. I mean, Corral could throw 3 or 4 picks, and Arkansas beats Ole Miss, and I think they do beat Auburn by. I don't think Auburn's very good. I think they get beat by 3 scores. I'm still not as high on Penn State as a lot of people are. I don't think Penn State's as good. Their biggest win is Wisconsin, who's 1-1, and Auburn, who's got quarterback is Bo Nix. So I'm not so sold on Penn State, and a big reason is because I'm not sold on Auburn. So I think that they beat Auburn by 3 scores. But I think Arkansas is going to be a top 10 team at the end of the year. I think that this gauntlet, you cannot expect them to go undefeated. If they come out of this 3-1, they should be in the playoff talks. I'll say that.
They come out 3-1. Like, say if they I don't think they're beating Georgia. I think that's the one game of those 4 that's at Georgia. I don't know if they're winning that game at all. But they go 3-1 and they still lose Alabama. That's 10-2. So that I get it. The gauntlet. They will have 4? They beat Texas, 4 ranked teams. They'd beat at that point.
I think at that point. And the thing is, with the way the season's going so far, would you rather take a 2-loss Arkansas or a 1-loss Clemson with an ACC title? That's obviously their only losses to Georgia, but they haven't beaten anybody.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a good debate. I think you'd probably pick Clemson there, but I would personally prefer in Arkansas because they've shown that they can play somebody. But I think that's more the fault of the ACC just being a bad conference at this point instead of Clemson, I guess, scheduling that.
I think there's only 3 ranked teams right now in the ACC.
North Carolina's low. Miami's out of the top 25 now.
Yeah, Miami's awful. So that also, Miami's just terrible, absolutely terrible.
Well, leading off of that and Colton with that, the spicy take, literally choosing Arkansas to win by double digits. What's your all's upset pick of the week? We know Colton's main one.
Do you want to go first, Gil?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I hope this isn't someone else's, but I think this one team, they've been able to pull off upsets, and they've been able to slay a giant a few times, and they are on the road, but it's a night game.
I know what you're going with.
On the road, the Mountaineers over Oklahoma in Norman. West Virginia gets it done. If they're a 17-point underdog right now, which I think is really high, they just beat a good Virginia Tech team. They did beat Virginia Tech. Let me see.
27-21,
yes,
right?
They did, 27-21. They just upset Virginia Tech, which is they're a good football team. Virginia Tech's probably going to play Clemson ACC championship. That's what it looks like right this second. Oklahoma, overrated. I think Spencer Rattler, is he good? Yeah, but he's not what everyone thought he's going to be. I don't think he's number 1 overall good whatsoever. Oklahoma's pretty vulnerable. They've been like that. In Nebraska, they only beat Nebraska by 7. Granted, like we talked about earlier, Nebraska is one of those teams that can beat anyone and lose anyone. So, and they almost lost to Tulane. Tulane's not bad. They really are not a bad American Athletic Conference member.
Ole Miss has been by 40, though.
But Ole Miss absolutely destroyed them, which Ole Miss is probably top 7-8 team in the country. But still, Oklahoma is going to lose to West Virginia at 7:30 on ABC. I'm confident in that pick. Spicy. I'm locking it in. I'm confident.
What's the spread on that right now?
It's funny because I got one I'm confident in. I'm confident in Baylor over Iowa State. Baylor's 3-0. As always, they have a good offense. You're talking about putting up 29 points in your season opener, then 66, then 45. Kansas is a nobody and Texas Southern is a nobody. And frankly, even Texas State in the week 1 was a nobody. But week 1 is always a weird game. There was a lot of losses in week 1 that I thought shouldn't have happened. I noticed that, which I thought was interesting. I don't know. I feel like Kansas. I'm sorry. I feel like Iowa State is just. I don't think they're going to be able to pull it off with some of the injuries that they've got. being ranked at number 14 and having that expectation, and you're facing a 3-0 team that's still unranked. That's kind of a trap game right there. So.
And also kind of piggyback off what you said. I mean, in my opinion, Brock Purdy is one of those quarterbacks that 1 week he'll look like a Heisman candidate. Next week he'll throw 3 picks and look absolutely awful. Have a QBR like 40.
I mean, Baylor's defense isn't really the kind of thing that's going to be forcing any of those turnovers, but at the same time, I could also see Brock Purdy getting greedy. And even though Baylor's defense isn't good, he's trying to force stuff in there simply because he thinks he can. And we'll see. I mean, we talked about earlier NC State and Clemson. That's another good one. I could see NC State pulling off the upset. I wouldn't put money on it, but it's possible.
Was that yours, Elijah?
I was going to go with that. I was thinking about it. I mean, I think that that's definitely going to be a good football game, and it will come down to the wire. There's not really any games this week. I mean, I do agree that I think that West Virginia does upset Oklahoma. I just feel like Oklahoma's been flirting with that, with losing to a game they shouldn't lose. And West Virginia's coming off a big win against Virginia Tech. Was it on the road or was it at home?
It was at home.
It was at home.
Still,
Okay. Well,
I mean, they're a good team.
either way, I mean, you're coming off a upset win and you get a chance to go into Norman and pull off a huge upset. And I'll say that I did not expect West Virginia. I was confused why West Virginia was favored over Virginia Tech in that game going into it, but they showed us why. They kind of won pretty handily. I mean, to the point where Virginia Tech completely fell out of the top 25. But I just think that that's definitely going to be. I just feel like Spencer Rattler's not what we thought he was. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I think that they do pull off the upset. But I think that my upset pick is it's not really a rank. It's not going to be a ranked game because I don't feel like there's too many good ranked games this week. And I guess I mean, I'm going to pick Wisconsin over Notre Dame if you wanted a ranked game, but I don't really feel like that's really an upset at this point.
Yeah, I would pick the same thing, but yeah, not worth.
I don't know if that's an upset. I mean, in Madison, I don't think it's a upset. But for me, my upset, and I think it's kind of funny how we're all going to the Big 12 for these upsets. It's not a ranked game, but the team that I'm picking to get upset is the first team out of the top 25. I think SMU beats TCU. SMU is a solid team. They always have a really good offense. And TCU has really not played anybody this year. I mean, in SMU, TCU, fans are going to be split down the middle. I mean, Texas Christians, very, very close to Dallas. So, I mean, which, speaking of that, I'm surprised that SMU is still not a powerhouse at this with the location that they're in, but we'll just being in Dallas, Texas, it's kind of shocking. But either way, I think that's an upset. I mean, I think another upset happens in the Big 12 as well. I think that Texas Tech upsets Texas. I mean, Texas has not looked good this year. I mean, and Texas Tech, I just feel like it's always a thing where Texas Tech always finds a way to upset Texas. I feel like I feel like we always see Texas Tech somehow beat Texas, even in Texas Tech's rough years.
Especially ever since that Crabtree play.
Ever since then, it's like every year from then on, it's like, oh, random wins, Great.
Yeah, they're just rolling off and just winning. But yeah, I agree with Caleb too on the NC. I think NC State can really at least give Clemson a really good game.
I mean, Georgia Tech gave them a good game. I mean, of course, I think NC State definitely has a chance. I mean, I could see it going one of two ways. I could see NC State upsetting them, but also could see Clemson pissed off about the Georgia Tech game and just absolutely demolish NC State. I could see either one going. It could go either way. I mean, NC State, people got high on them because they beat South Florida by 45. South Florida might be the worst team in college football. But
yeah, they're definitely up there with like Colorado State and Vanderbilt and some of those squads. But
all right, so definitely some spicy upsets this week. I feel like it's not really that great of a week, but definitely some good games to watch. I mean, that's the great thing about college football. Even in the worst weeks, there's a couple of really, really good games that you need to tune into. But so after that, so we talked about last week some Heisman candidates. I know we mentioned Corral, we mentioned Young, we mentioned Ritter, we mentioned Rattler still. But so is there anyone else that you guys think could be a dark horse guy that could sneak into that race? Or do you think that it's kind of Corral's to lose? Do you think it's kind of Bryce Young's to lose? Where do you all stand to that?
I mean, I don't think we can say whether it's equally right now. Corral's and wait, I just lost his name, the Alabama guy.
Young.
Yeah,
Bryce
it's
Young.
equally Corral and Bryce Young's to lose until they play each other, and then after that, it'll be one of theirs to lose. But I mean, yeah, that's not a very hot take, but I just feel like that's kind of the way it works right now. Until one team beats the other, we'll figure out which one is better according to that. I mean, a dark horse. I know this is like interesting, but a little out there, but I could see it. I mean, Talia Tagovailoa is going off right now at Maryland, and they're 3-0.
Yeah, Maryland looks pretty solid. They look kind of scary.
And I will say Heisman stuff, I kind of like that dark horse pick because, I mean, Heisman, a lot of times it is name value. I mean, because honestly, I mean, Johnny Manziel was great in college, but he probably wasn't the best player in college football that year, but he had that huge game against Alabama. His name was, and he obviously, with his money celebration, all this stuff, he was just that guy. If he didn't win it, there would have been riots.
Yeah, he definitely deserves. I mean, he's my favorite non-Georgia player I've ever seen in college. I mean, that may be just the way he shouldn't have been as good as he was. But yeah, I mean, but honestly, this may be kind of spicy, and this may not really seem like a lot of sense to people. But Anthony Brown, quarterback out of Oregon, what if Oregon goes? They're sitting at 11-1, 12-0, and they have a chance to get in the playoff, and they're in the Pac-12 championship, and they play UCLA and they beat them by like 2 or 3 touchdowns. Anthony Brown's gonna be looking like some hot commodity over there in Eugene. I mean, it's really a stretch for sure, but I mean, Oregon is set up right now to really have a great shot at playoff.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good pick. I mean, I'm looking at the Vegas odds right now for Heisman, and there's a couple of them that I'm confused how they're so high, and there's other ones that I'm like, how are they so low? So obviously, Corral right now, Corral is plus 200 and Bryce Young's plus 240, so they're virtually the same odds. And it kind of from there it just completely jumps way up on the odds. Second, they got CJ Stroud. I don't feel like he should be a Heisman candidate.
Mm-mm.
Huh?
That's updated to current, really?
That's
over Young
this week. Yes.
That's stupid.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised too. Yeah.
I'm gonna go put some money down on Bryce Young then.
Plus 240, and then CJ Stroud's plus 1,600. Spencer Rattler's plus 1,800. I think that's definitely a better bet than CJ Stroud. If Rattler bounces back, then I mean he could definitely have a chance to win it. Ritter's plus 2,000. As I said last week, I really am high on Ritter. I think he has a chance to win it.
It's just hard for the name value there in Cincinnati. Cincinnati needs to get more primetime games. Yada yada yada.
They did look good against Indiana, and Ritter looked pretty good too. But again, that's not going to blow everyone away as a Corral beating Alabama or anything like that would do.
Exactly. I mean, that's the problem is like, we'll talk about it, and so like actual college sports talk about it, but people who are, if you go and watch College Game Day, they might give Ritter like 2 minutes of airtime. It's going to be like 45 minutes devoted to Matt Corral versus Bryce Young instead.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but I mean, I don't think a lot of people expected Devonta Smith to win the Heisman last year, but he did. But
the best thing for Desmond Ritter right now, for his Heisman hopes is for Notre Dame to pretty much be undefeated until Cincinnati plays Notre Dame.
They play
which I think Wisconsin's going to win against Notre Dame anyways, but
me too.
Wisconsin's quarterback was crap against a good Penn State team though, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, look at the odds. I mean, Sam Howell's at plus 2,500. I wouldn't pick him anymore because from how bad the first game was. And I think, even though I think he's going to bounce back and North Carolina's going to be a better team, I think they definitely showed me they would be better this week after I thought they'd lose to Virginia last week. They definitely showed me a little bit that they are not going to go away. But I think Howell's reputation got a little bit messed up from that first game, where it's kind of that week one plays way too much of a role, in my opinion, into the Heisman race. But it is what it is. I think that the bet I would go with, I mean, the two best bets, in my opinion, right now, and Anthony Brown at plus 5,000. They got him like 15th or 16th on the list here. I think that's definitely a good bet. But also JT Daniels at plus 3,000. They've got him at worse odds than Malik Willis, I mean, he just got beat, so that'll probably drop as well. But they got him worse odds than Sam Howell, Desmond Ritter, Spencer Rattler, CJ Stroud, and then obviously the top two. I feel like he's a better pick than everyone above him except for those top two.
Yeah, I feel like JT Daniels is definitely a safe pick. I mean, with Georgia, obviously playing SEC, and if they can beat Florida and get past Florida and Jacksonville, then I mean they have a great chance to be. I'm not saying they will be 12-0, but they have a great chance to be 12-0 against Alabama. And I mean, if both teams are 12-0 going in there, Bryce Young and JT Daniels, I mean that would be definitely a Heisman role right there. See what happens with that. But yeah, I mean, right now I think it's just Corral and Young. But definitely we'll see where it will be in the next couple of weeks. I mean, who knows? Corral may outduel Young or vice versa. So,
I know this is really a hot take. I don't like this guy. I don't think he's a very good player. But from how he looked against Alabama, I mean, Emory Jones at plus 8,000 odds is actually not awful odds. I mean, if Florida did find a way to upset Georgia and go to the SEC championship game and find a way to upset Alabama, I mean, it's hard to beat a team twice in a year. So, I mean, especially when it's that close. I mean, if he was able to pull Florida together and find a way to go do that, then that could be the dark horse pick here. I mean, he's got less odds. His odds are lower than De'Aaron King, which
yeah, I would not put him below De'Aaron King.
like
Not anymore, at least.
Like below Tank Bigsby. I mean, I will say for one that is very intriguing to me that I know that would probably be intriguing to Caleb as well. Kenneth Walker from Michigan State, the running back, is plus 3,500. So I mean, if Michigan State if he can end up winning that division and going and they can beat Ohio State, and he has like a 250-yard game or something like that, you could see him pushing himself right into that conversation as well, because he has been dominant this year.
It's kind of slightly off topic, but I was actually thinking about that because I was talking about Talia Tagovailoa. I wonder if he's going to end up kind of like, we might want to have this talk like when we get around to the draft next year and stuff, but I wonder if he's going to end up kind of like Russell Wilson, where he's like a little bit underappreciated, even though he puts up big numbers and he doesn't get recognized really like he should. Mm-hmm. And he'll go in like the third round to someone, and he actually turns out to be more polished than a lot of people expect. I don't know. Maryland is just such like a back marker in the Big Ten that it's hard to, it would take a lot. And I mean, even if Talia has a great game, if they end up not beating any of the bigger Big Ten ranked teams, I don't really know what their schedule is. I'm assuming they play Ohio State.
Yeah, they're in the same division as like Ohio State, Michigan State.
Yeah, I know they play Michigan State. I don't know if they play Ohio State. I think they do.
Yeah,
but
they get Iowa next Friday.
I mean, maybe if he strings big games together, because he's definitely going to be the reason they win if they do win. I mean, their running back core isn't bad and their wide receivers are good, but like it's all around his arm and him distributing the ball. So I mean, maybe.
I'll say this: if he's going to have a chance to do it, if you want to pick a guy, it's not even on that top 20 list, that's the guy to go with, because he has a chance.
I mean, I'm surprised. I'd put him over Emory Jones personally. I know that's whatever, but I mean, Emory's in a legitimate fight for his job with Richardson. Even after that Alabama game, I mean, Richardson showed enough the week before, if you ask me, to deserve snaps, and that's just going to take away from Emory Jones's visibility.
I mean, I agree. It's going to be really good for Talia if he can find a way to pull off a couple of these upsets. I mean, they have a gauntlet in their season, though. They're at home against Iowa next week. Well, they have Kent State this week, so this is his chance to rack up a bunch of stats. But next week, Friday night, under the lights, at home against Iowa. Very next week.
I think they can pull that off. That might be my upset pick of the week for next week.
I think they can pull it off, too. The next week, at Ohio State on Saturday at noon. Then at Minnesota, at home against Indiana, at home against Penn State, at Michigan State, at home against Michigan, and at Rutgers.
That's perfectly set up if you can win
schedule.
If you can win all of those except like two, you know what I mean, and have those be close games.
I mean, if he can pull off a couple upsets there, I mean, I think they should win against Minnesota and Indiana, but those teams also have shown signs of being pretty good. I mean, Indiana was really good last year. Minnesota almost beat Ohio State earlier this year. I mean,
it kind of depends how like Corral and Young finish out the season. Because if Talia or some other quarterback, let's just say, or some other player is like putting up massive stats, and Young and or Corral fall off, have more than one loss, whatever the case is, that opens it up to a whole new door. You know, so.
And those are definitely top two right now. And I think honestly the safe money would be right there. But if you're trying to make that small $10 bet turn into $8,000, I mean, picks like Talia, Emory Jones wouldn't be too bad at picks.
Yeah, I mean, Talia, the thing is, he could probably only really lose 2 games and still have a chance at the Heisman. If he plays really well in those games, like just think about when Lamar Jackson won. I mean, not saying he's Lamar Jackson.
They lost 3 times, didn't they?
Yeah, they lost 3 times. He went 9-3 in regular season, still won the Heisman. Granted, like they were pretty much in all the games that he lost, from what I remember. And he was the reason why they won 9 games. If it wasn't for him, they would probably be lucky to win like 6. Honestly, I remember that Clemson game that year they played and they lost by 4 in Death Valley.
It was him and Jair Alexander on that team.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you can lose 2 or 3 games and still win the Heisman. I mean, and then when Johnny Manziel won it, they lost 2 games that in regular season. So, I mean, anything is possible. I mean, you can't.
That's going to happen. It's usually on teams that are not expected to be great that end up winning some games they shouldn't win. And that's why I think that's a very good pick.
Yeah.
That could be a big time moneymaker. Someone wanted to do it. And if they trusted Maryland, I mean, if Maryland's as good as RJ Young had him in his poll, where he had him I think he had him 19. If they're that good, I mean, they're going to pull off a couple of these upsets. And you're going to see, I mean, if they're that good, they're going to beat Minnesota, Indiana, and Rutgers no matter what. And at that point, you'd be having to win 2 of 5 against Iowa, Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. I mean, my only worry with
3 out of 5.
My only worry with that is like this: they have Penn State, Michigan back to back to back. And I feel like that's extremely difficult to see them winning that. But that'd be a really awesome thing if you could see that. Plus the Tagovailoa name, if they start winning games like this, you know for a fact that he's going to get the publicity. So, well, we're happy that we were able to do that. I'm excited for this week in college football, and we'll see you next week. And hopefully we have some really good spicy takes for next week.
Hopefully our spicy takes came true.
All right. Peace out, guys.